Happening, folks. Threw myself into this bird's nest because I wasn't able to find a gymnastics costume that fit me. That'll probably make more sense after you've seen the review. Hatching is a 2022 psychological body horror from Finnish director Hanna Bergholm. It scored unusually high with critics, but normal folks like you and I thought it was just okay. I'm gonna break the story down into 3 acts and we'll see if we can figure out what's causing the big disparity. The movie opens in picturesque, perfectly manicured Finnish surroundings, and the bright pastel-colored house we're visiting looks just as perfect on the inside. We meet 12-year-old Tinja and her mother, the social influencer and ex-figure skater, Matka, during a typical day for this charming Finnish family. After a giggle-fueled tickle fight with her daughter, Matka takes us on a virtual tour of the house and the rest of the family, as she's streaming the presentation for her YouTube viewers. Matka closes the stream by telling her audience she hopes their days are as lovely as her family's are, and you can barely fit all the smiles into the 16:9 ratio screen. Then a bird gets into the family room and wreaks havoc. When the bird lands on the chandelier, if you turn your volume up real loud, you will hear the bird whisper Tinja's name. When Tinja corrals the bird into a blanket, her mother takes it from her and unexpectedly breaks its neck with a smile. Then Tinja meets Rita, who's moved in next door. Tinja asks her if it's okay to pet her dog. Once she's gained permission, she puts her hand out only to have it bitten. And when Rita apologizes, Tinja assures her it was actually her own fault. And back inside, Mother's singing to Tinja's younger brother, Matthias. Now that the cameras are off, he's acting like a belligerent pest, insisting his mother sing the song louder. Always eager to please Mother, Tinja comes in to help, only to have her mother get up and leave her to finish it herself. And after singing Matthias to sleep, she joins her mother, who's editing her new video intro. In English, her channel name translates to Our Lovely Everyday Life. And her videos are about their lovely, normal Finnish family. Which is almost exactly like what we do on this channel, except we focus on lovely werewolves and witches and serial killers. When Tinja realizes her toes weren't pointing in the exact right direction for half a second, her mother assures her she'll just crop them out of the video so nobody notices. When Tinja tells her mom Rita invited her over for a visit, her mom reminds her she has to practice for gymnastics, as if visiting Rita's was a ridiculous suggestion. That night, a bird screams outside. When Tinja investigates, she realizes it's the bird from earlier, and somehow still alive. She tries picking it up, but it bites her, so she bludgeons it with a rock, and it's very realistic, so I can't show you it. She figures out the bird was trying to get back to its egg, so she brings it into her room and tucks it inside her teddy bear's tummy to keep it warm and to alleviate some of her guilt. And back in gymnastics, Tinja's lack of confidence is threatening to end her hopes of competing in next week's competition, so again, Tinja apologizes. And then back home again, she finds the handyman earning his title with her mother. A moment later, Mom brings her in a new shiny outfit to ensure everybody notices her in gymnastics. And then Mom explains adults sometimes have special friends. She's heading away for a couple of days with her new special friend. Then she suggests they keep the secret between the girls. And as her 12-year-old brain is repairing itself from everything her mother just did to it, she lifts the egg to her ear and hears a strong, vibrant heartbeat. When Mom comes back from her supposed business trip, Tinja gets a case of the guilties and goes in to spend time with her father. But her father's only affectionate and interested when the camera's on, so Tinja's left standing at the doorway like a homeless waif so he can play his new guitar. And back in gymnastics, Mother's very proud of Tinja's improvements, until the new neighbor Rita blows Tinja's performance right out of the water. 2 hours later, and Tinja's hands are torn to shreds from the repetition her mother's forcing on her. And being an ex-figure skater herself, she's able to point out all of Tinja's tiny flaws. Back home again, Tinja is sat down for a nearly unwatchable conversation when her mom speaks to her as if she's one of her adult peers, and not her 12-year-old daughter. She confides in Tinja she's in love. Naturally, Tinja assumes she's talking about her dad. When she learns it's the handyman, you can watch her little heartbreak in response to the ugly news right on camera. When Mom asks if she understands, she supports her immediately out of habit and saves her tears for when she's alone in her room. It's no coincidence the egg is the same size as Tinja now, and the first act is brought to a close when something starts hatching from the egg. This opening act does a smashing job introducing us to the main characters and establishing the conflict to come. We're invited in to admire this perfect family's life, only to learn it's a facade orchestrated and heavily edited for social media by a woman obsessed with outward appearances. Tinja, the 12-year-old child, is the only normal one once the cameras have been turned off. And that's miraculous, given her entire family is actively destroying her security and stability. Tinja's behaviors tell us her mother has done a real number on her over the years. She even apologizes for a dog biting her after she's asked permission to pet it. And her mother's not only excusing lying and deception, she's encouraging her daughter to do the same by implying she's happier living this dual splintered life. And without even trying, she's also destroying her daughter's future by encouraging her to be disrespectful towards her own father. After all, young girls learn to respect men by respecting their own fathers first. Knowing her mother has always been this way and there's very little chance she's suddenly going to change her ways, we're witnessing the groundwork being laid for the splintering of Tinja herself. Now they've brought this first act to a perfect close by having the egg starting to crack. Let's find out what's inside. Act 2 kicks off with a masterfully made practical puppet, and it's exactly as ugly as everything her mother's just thrust onto her. It takes off out the window in a panic, and when father comes in to investigate, she tells him a bird did it. Later that night, it comes back, and it's ferocious, but it's also injured, and it mimics Tinja's actions. It doesn't take long before they're comfy with each other. Tinja names it Ali, she gives it a bath, and she sings it to sleep. At 3 in the morning, Rita's dog next door starts barking, so Ali kills it and brings its headless corpse to Tinja as a gift. This makes her vomit, so Ali does what young birds instinctively do. I'm not showing you this part either. Suffice it to say, the effects are spectacular. After Tinja buries the dog in the backyard, her father comes in to ask her why she's being rude to Matthias. And when he sees speckles of blood on her sheets, he freezes up and withdraws in every sense of the word, further emphasizing the utter lack of connection he has with his own child. The next day in school, Rita asks Tinja why she missed practice, and Tinja claims she just forgot. Recognizing something's off, she asks Tinja to walk home with her, and for half an hour, Tinja gets to act like the 12-year-old girl she is. But that ends the second after Rita asks her to help put flyers up for her missing dog. Back home again, Mom brings presents home for Tinja after her latest romp weekend, but fails to do the same for Matthias. So he digs up the headless dog from the backyard. He claims he saw Tinja kill it and bury it, but nobody believes him. So he knocks Tinja down, and we get a clear idea what's transpiring when a quick image of Ali the bird flashes on screen. Then when Mother finds the new outfit's been torn to shreds in her closet, Tinja claims it was an accident. Mom gets upset Tinja's not as focused on the upcoming competition as she is. That leaves Tinja alone to feed Ali, her terrifying bundle of joy. And she has to regurgitate everything like a real bird now. And the real bird is starting to sprout familiar strands of greasy blonde hair. That night, when Tinja's asleep, Ali goes for a little stroll. It terrifies her brother and accosts her mother in her sleep. And the next night, after Rita shows Tinja up at gymnastics again, Ali pays her a little visit on her walk home. At the exact same time that's happening, Tinja takes a little fit in the car. So her mother comforts her by telling her it's just nerves. The best way to get rid of nerves is to win the gymnastics competition. And if that wasn't comforting enough, Mom's also taking her to the handyman's house for the weekend. And if she thought she might have misheard that, it's confirmed the next morning when she announces they're going to his house in front of her husband. Flabbergasted, Tinja sits with her jaw hanging while her father tells her he respects her mother for knowing what she wants because it makes things a lot easier for him. And in a film about a giant mutant murderous bird, the true horror in this movie might be the fact men like this really exist. After a lovely drive through the countryside, she officially meets the handyman, who is a widower with an infant daughter. And while Tinja's left alone in a strange, unfinished bedroom, she's visited by Ali, who is almost completely completely Tinja now. And in the best scene of the film, in my opinion, young Tinja tenderly strokes Ali's hair, assuring her everything is going to be okay, over the sounds of her mother and the handyman having comically loud sex in another room. The next morning, Mom's fussing over the baby and decorating it like it's an object. And Taro, the handyman, tells Tinja it's okay to start eating. So she dives into it, like a bird. When she accidentally spills some, she's terrified of the retribution she's used to getting at home, but Taro throws some food around the table himself, and that makes her comfortable. But Mother tells them both to knock it off with a scowl. An abrupt cut takes us to a pure white hospital room where Rita is all bandaged up. Although I was convinced it was a dream sequence, it isn't. Rita's actually been beaten within an inch of her life, and it's a good thing Mother's there to comfort her daughter again by reminding her not to let it interfere with gymnastics. Back at Taro's, Tinja lashes out at Ali for hurting Rita. When she raises a hand to strike her, she smacks herself repeatedly instead. And then the roles reverse and Ali, who has nearly completed her metamorphosis, starts comforting Tinja. Taro surprises her with a pair of custom leather grips he made for her gymnastics. So she shows him some of her moves. She gets very upset when they aren't perfect. And in a very telling exchange about the depth of damage Tinja's mother has inflicted on her over the years, when Taro tells her it's not important, she doesn't even understand what that means. Then rather unexpectedly, Ali screeches from upstairs, so Tinja rushes off to feed her. And when Taro follows them, his hand's crushed in the door by Tinja, or Ali. It's hard to tell. Tinja packs her bag to leave without being told to do so, but Taro tells her she's not going anywhere, recognizing there's something seriously wrong. And then Mom comes back and Tinja's whisked away to the gymnastics competition. While she's there, she sees images of Ali standing over the baby with an axe. So she flings herself on the ground intentionally to throw Ali off. But when they get back, Taro refuses to let them into the house. When Mother's unable to mend the fence, she brings the second act to a close by bashing her face against the steering wheel in a screaming fit. Furious, Tinja has ruined her happiness.
This second act intensifies all the unhealthy elements within these characters and brings them to their inevitable conclusions, exactly the way a second act is supposed to. It also presents us with a fascinating physical manifestation of adolescent rage and family dysfunction in general, with Gustav Hogan's animatronic puppet, Ali. Ali is a direct result of Tinja's attempt at splintering, or developing a second version of herself in an attempt to find happiness. The problem is, she's 12, and most 12-year-olds are incapable of living a dual life. As this second act progresses, Tinja's mother's selfishness grows as she becomes less aware of how her selfishness is affecting everybody around her. And that drives Tinja further inward, as it's the only real direction left available to her. And all of this has a cyclical effect. Mother's living vicariously through her daughter, so if her daughter's failing, she's failing. This second act is brought to a close with each of these regressions reaching a peak. Mother is now physically injuring herself in response to not getting exactly what she wants. And Ali is killing everybody in response to Tinja's young brain overloading under the unbearable weight her entire family is strapped to her shoulders. Going into this third and final act, we know what's caused the turmoil, we know what Ali and the mother are both capable of, but we have no idea how everything is going to play out. And I think that's just about perfect.
In the final act, Mom announces they're home because Tinja insisted they leave. Ineffectual Dad doesn't even ask where the blood came from. And Matthias is just jubilant his sister lost the gymnastics competition. Ali tries coming in through the window, but Tinja pushes her out. When she hits the ground in the backyard, Dad asks her what the hell she's doing. Then Mom tries whitewashing the day's events for her subscribers, but this time she just can't. So she heads into Tinja's room and mistakes Ali for her daughter. And when she sees how filthy she is, she grabs a brush. And when half of her scalp comes away with the brush, Ali attacks her. When Tinja rushes in to help, Mom sees both of them standing beside each other. After Ali runs off, Tinja tells her mom she hatched Ali, and she just wants her to go away now. And Mother softens a bit and hugs her daughter before handing her a butcher knife to kill the second bird in this movie. But Tinja gets the guilties at the last minute and stands in front of Ali, taking her mother's knife to the chest. She collapses, and Ali feeds on her blood and becomes the survivor of the two of them. The story's brought to a close with a nifty metaphor, implying Tinja's still there, but her mother killed off the best, purest parts of her. And in a final display of Mother's true wickedness, she grins when she realizes she's killed the weaker version of her own daughter. Hatching takes everything to an extreme, and that could be off-putting for some viewers. I enjoyed the metaphors being taken to the nth degree. I also love the idea Tinja's mother viewed her whole family as nothing more than editable elements on a YouTube thumbnail. That's a valid picture to paint in this day and age. After watching this movie, I read through a lot of the negative reviews, and generally speaking, I feel a lot of people weren't paying attention to the details in this movie. I'm not saying everybody should like it, but I am saying any movie will let you down if you're not reading the subtext along with the dialogue and the actions. Is it possible Bergholm didn't convey the subtext effectively? Of course it is. But it also comes down to how people react to their own perceptions of a less than straightforward film, in my opinion. If I don't understand something or I'm not able to form a cohesive opinion, I'll dig deeper. Many of the negative reviews seemed dismissive of elements of this story that were not meant to be taken literally. Now, obviously, symbols and metaphors and allegory are not for everyone, and I am not implying they should be, but it saddens me a bit when I think about how much some of these people are missing in films when they simply declare something shitty because they didn't fully understand it. Blaming the movie can't be your first port of call. At least it can't be for me. If it was, I'd have hated half the movies I've reviewed on this channel. If you've been here for a while, you know that is a ridiculous notion. I only hate about a third of them.
If you've seen Hatching already, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time. It's me, Jonny, from that video you just watched, although I'm sure you know who I am, right? You should subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything, it's easy to do, and it makes creative people like myself who thrive on compliments feel all warm and fuzzy. And if you like that last video, click on this next video because it's just as amazing. Click on it.